Welcome to the On Your Side podcast. I'm Gary Harper.
And I'm Susan Campbell.
Susan, we just came out of June last month. And isn't that the most popular?
Well, we're going into August already.
Well, I know we're in July, but we came out of June. And I bring that up because we're talking about weddings today. And the last time I checked, which wasn't recently, but wasn't June like the most popular month for weddings?
Oh, I think it depends on where you live. In Arizona, you're probably talking March or October.
That's a great point, yeah. Because if you get married now, and it's outside, that's not very good.
But, where I grew up in Ohio, yes, June.
Yes.
That's like primo.
That would make
time.
sense. What year did you get married?
2016.
Oh gosh, it seems like it was yesterday.
It does sometimes.
Did you foot the entire bill for the wedding?
My parents generously did.
Ooh.
They paid for it all, and I don't know that my dad still knows the actual tally of all of the weddings.
It's better that he doesn't know.
It added up. We had a budget. And then it added up, and the closer you get to the day, you add some things in, and and then you forget you have to tip this person and that person.
Yes.
All of a sudden, the budget is blown.
And you're like, Mom, can we just have a blank check, please? And don't tell Dad. I was married in 1994.
Okay.
Were you even born then?
Yes, of course I was born, Gary.
Well, I don't know. I'm
not going to tell you what year I was born.
You're very youthful, so I thought maybe.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. I think we spent about $5,000 on our wedding. My parents picked up the food, the catering.
That was nice of them.
Very nice.
Very cool.
And then my wife and I, we took care of everything else. And I was looking it up. $5,000 back in 1994 is around $11,000 in today's money.
It would have been a nice wedding.
So it was good.
What was your favorite part of the day?
Well, I don't remember hardly the wedding at all. Really, I mean, the wedding itself, it was like a blur.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know about your wedding, but I was talking to so many people. We had probably about 75 people there.
Yeah.
And it was just, I was glad when it was over.
It all goes by in the blink of an eye.
It goes by very quickly.
Yeah.
But, we're talking about weddings today.
This is one of my very favorite subjects in the world. I have a confession to make to you.
Ooh.
I had a side gig a few years ago. I helped sell wedding dresses at a wedding dress boutique, and it was the most fun job in the world.
Really?
Yeah.
That's also the most dangerous job because if you mess up, if you missize somebody or you deliver the wrong dress or it's, what do they call it, bridezilla?
Yeah, some bridezillas, some mother of the bridezillas.
Yes.
But mostly everyone's really, really happy and really excited, and it's really fun.
It can get costly, and that's what we're talking to Ann Kaplan. She's in London. You're a wedding and finance expert. Thanks for joining us today on the On Your Side podcast, Ann. Briefly, tell us a little bit about yourself as far as your wedding background, and you're in London, so tell us a little bit about us or about you so our viewers and listeners can get to know you a little bit.
Well, my wedding background, I have been married to my current husband 5 times. So we keep renewing our wedding vows.
That's so lovely.
But this is really smart. I go up a carat every year. And then when we renew, I get that. So I'm at 24 carats.
Oh, my goodness. So, that is genius.
It is genius. And so anyway, it's just like, let's renew our vows. And then it's, you need a new ring. But I also I had some friends that came to me a few years ago and they said, we'd like you to be the officiant at our wedding. We'd like you to marry us. And so I went and studied and became a reverend. And so I became an officiant and I've done a number of weddings. And so I market at $5,000 a wedding, but free for friends and family. So no one has actually ever paid me.
Aww.
So I just enjoy doing it and love getting to know the bride and groom and what they want to do for their special wedding day. And just love doing weddings, but they're always for friends and family. And one of my girlfriends renewed last November and she said, I helped her out. I helped her set up the wedding. And then she said, oh, just take over, just do what you want. Well, that was a big mistake because I hired drag queens to come down the aisle because she didn't tell me.
She didn't give you parameters.
She said, do what you want. And so the look on the groom's face was a little bit in shock. And I just said, you said, do what you want.
I love it. She had to know that was coming. She had to know something fun was coming.
I mean, talk about
she
memorable.
Says that. Oh yeah, she said they're still talking about it now. But and in weddings as well. Recently, I bought a castle in Kent, England, which is the garden capital of the United Kingdom, and I set up a wedding venue. And we've about 32 or 33 weddings booked. So we are. I'm not officiating weddings. I'm not licensed in England and not looking to do that, but we are doing weddings. So I'm starting to understand the wedding business as well,
Right.
and what brides want and what brides do. And so that from different points of getting married so many times to the same wonderful man, and being an officiant, and then also having a wedding venue.
And you are also a finance expert, founder of iFinance. So you kind of have this unique perspective of, you know what it takes to put on a wedding. They can be extremely expensive, but you can also help people kind of navigate the process, and maybe find some ways to splurge and save and get through with a good budget. Where do people need to start when they are, they just got engaged, they're so happy, they're planning life together, and then you're looking at like, oh my goodness, this feels giant?
Well, I think I'm also very cheap. I watch every single dime. And so when somebody is thinking of getting married, start right away. Start saving right away, and maybe the smartest thing would be to set up a savings account for your wedding and have it focused, and then get a budget. So someone wants to get married, set a budget up and look at that budget. And as you go along, start paying attention to each of the line items, the cost of each one, and see where you can cut back on costs of every single line item. Don't wait to the last minute to say, oh, okay, we spent too much on that. Have a budget for it, and then start to see how you can cut back on each item. You can get your dream wedding, but you've got to watch everything.
I think the average cost for a wedding nationally is around $29,000. Here in Arizona,
You're right.
It's $22,000. What's out of that money? What's the biggest price tag as far as where's all that money going to, the majority of it?
So you're right. The average cost in the United States is $30,000 for a wedding. And that's up a little bit from a few pre-COVID. The biggest cost would be, well, you've got the venue, and you can actually save money if you think, well, we can get married at someone's house. We can get married at the beach. We can get married, somewhere that isn't going to cost you that venue cost. So when you're aware of that, you're not going to spend $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000 on the venue. And don't get locked in when you say, okay, we've got the hotel. They're going to charge you more for the food. And so you're indirectly paying the venue cost. So they're not doing it for free. And your food cost and your alcohol cost, your food, your alcohol, and your venue cost. And indirectly, when you are going somewhere, they are actually charging you for the cost.
Well, and you can understand where the cost is coming from, right? I mean, if you're having a typical wedding with 100 to 200 guests, you're paying for dinner, you're buying them drinks all night long. That does, of course, add up really quickly. But then you have all the other stuff around it. You have to have music. So you either have the band or the DJ, so you can dance all night long.
What about
the dresses?
The dinners? I mean, can we just forget the dinners? Have an open bar. That's the most important thing. And maybe some snacks.
I don't know. I want to eat food.
Really?
I love good food. We had the best food.
You have the rest of your
wedding.
life to eat. That day or night.
I agree with you. You've got the rest of your life to have that great food. Have the party.
Yes.
Have the party. And mingle. That one of the best weddings I ever went to, they had it in a parking lot in San Diego.
Wow.
And they brought in a food cart. So they had this food truck stand that was brought in. They brought in a bar stand with margaritas and beer, and they had the wedding in the parking lot, and then they moved all of the chairs and made tables and chairs, and everyone just partied. And it was just so memorable. And that's creative. You can get creative. If you want that dream wedding, get creative. If you don't have a big budget, get creative.
I really love that idea. I guess when you get down to the basics here, when you have a wedding, yes, it is a ceremony, but it's all about socializing and having a good time. It is a party. And I think many people, when they get married, they just kind of lose sight of that. And I mean, right? Don't you want to dance and drink, Susan?
I did. I had the greatest wedding party ever. I loved it so much, but I wanted food too.
Don't forget, this advice is coming from a lady who bought a castle.
I know.
Okay, so
I know
she knows.
She wants people to have a good time at a good venue.
Yeah. So, all right, what's the second thing? So the venue is important when it comes to price. That's where most of the money goes to. What's the second thing?
Well, you've got your food and your alcohol. So that really that's the big part of the wedding. Of course, the dress, but if you take that out of the equation, because you have to change up the dress. There was one girl that got married at the castle recently, and she dressed as a princess, and she bought a princess dress, sort of like a Disney princess, and it was magical. So she figured out a way to spend $120 on a dress, and she looked like a princess, and it was magical. So whatever way you're cutting costs, if it's a dress or the ring is the big one too, whatever way you're cutting costs, just own it and just enjoy it and have it part of a theme of some way that you're creating your wedding, because everyone has a different budget.
Everybody sure does have a different budget. When you are talking with either the venue who's going to do your food or a caterer, if you're bringing in an outside caterer, are there certain questions or things that every bride and groom should be asking to make sure that they can keep those costs under control?
Yes. When you are asking, the first thing you want to do is find out whether you can bring your own caterer in, because that will save you a lot if you can get your own caterer. We had one big party ourselves one time, and we set up different food stands. So you could go and get Thai food, you could go and get hot dogs, you could go and get Mexican food. We had different food stands, and then we had the party in the middle. That's a fun way to do it, but we had to find a venue that would allow us to bring in different types of food. So that's one way you can actually, in the long run, save on your food, depending on the number of people.
So here at On Your Side, we troubleshoot for people who have problems they can't resolve. One that comes across our desks that we hate to see is when people pay or hire a venue and then the venue isn't there come the wedding day. They go out of business or they just take the money and run. What, in your eyes, what should a couple do to secure a venue without getting ripped off?
Well, it's very difficult to know if a company is going to go out of business or not. But I would say they have to have something in their contract. So before they sign, make sure they have something in their contract that their money is returned immediately if somebody should go out of business. You've got to be careful and put a smaller amount down. If you're booking your venue a year out, put a smaller amount down. So just say they require $3,000 to put down on the wedding venue. Put down $500 and say, okay, in 6 months, I'll put another $500. So spread your money out and so minimize your risks, because you don't know if somebody's going to go under, especially in this day and age when post-COVID, there's a lot of challenges with businesses.
I like that. Some stair steps, a little here and then a little bit down the road and then a little bit down the road.
Yeah, as long as the venue is open to that, that makes all the sense in the world. But I assume a lot of these places are, a little more strict, like half now, half on the day.
Well, they
have a formula.
They could ask whatever they want, but whether or not you're
willing. But you have to agree to it.
You have to agree to it. And if they're too greedy, see you later, pal. I'll go to the next venue.
Yeah. A lot of couples are saying that because they do want the absolute wedding of their dreams, they're willing to put a lot of the cost on credit cards. I assume as a finance expert, you would say this is a terrible idea. But are there ways to kind of, how do we save for such a giant expense? Most weddings you plan for a year. And for a lot of couples to save $30,000 in a year while they're probably also wanting to save up for a house and a down payment, that's a lot at one time.
Yes, and do you really want to go into your marriage in so much debt? But if you have to have your dream wedding, again, set the budget up and put a savings account aside. If you're going to put it on a credit card, try to do it on a 0% interest credit card, and then have your budget where you're paying it off within the year. So do everything you can. There's also a way that you can do it is, and I went to one of these weddings in Mexico. It was an all-inclusive wedding. So I went to the wedding and I paid my own flight and I paid my own room. And then the wedding was all covered. But what the all-inclusive resort did is they paid for the bride and groom's room. They paid for all the food. All that was included because the guests had all their food all-inclusive. So the wedding was paid for. They didn't have to pay a dime for their wedding.
That's a good way to do it.
There's some ways you could do it. The guests all pay to go down there, or you don't go, and you get a free wedding.
Wow. That sounds good to me, right?
I know when your sons get married, you're going to be like, "How about Mexico?"
Yes, exactly. Hopefully that won't be for a while, though. They're too young. 23 and 26.
26 isn't that young, Gary.
Let's just say he can't
young.
he can't take care of himself, much less somebody else.
Give him a little time.
Hey, let's talk about stationery. And I know it's really a big deal for couples to mail out, their invites, and it has to be just right, and it has to look just right. How about going digital these days? That really is not a bad idea, and it saves a ton of money.
I think going digital is great, and really nobody does mail out anything. No one gets the mail. It is beautiful, but save your stationery for something else, the expenditure on that, and then do go digital. There's ways that you can customize your wedding, such as for the guests, have cupcakes with their names on it where they're sitting, and a little note for each guest. Like, do something that is really special from the bride and groom that doesn't cost anything, and the guests are there, and then thank you for enjoying your day. Susie, thank you for coming to my wedding and enjoying the day with me. We really loved having you here. And then you have a special cupcake with Susie's name on it. And so do something like that rather than have your expenditure on the stationery if you want to have a memorable token. People don't save that. They don't save the stationery. They RSVP, yes. And they have to find a way to go online and RSVP, yes.
Right.
Is there something that you have seen in your experience that you just think is the biggest waste of money that all kinds of brides and grooms do?
I think, and nobody will like me saying this, but I'm just speaking the truth. I think wedding planners can really take up a big budget. And really what you're planning is a party. You're planning a party and a dinner. And often the wedding planner will sort of move you into a way that you weren't foreseeing. But so they'll get you to spend a little bit more so that wedding plan is great. They're not thinking of your budget. They'll stress you out. Make sure that you have somebody on the day that can direct the bride and groom and direct the father of the bride, the mother of a bride. So appoint a friend to say, okay, you're doing this. You're the director. But I don't think the wedding planner is necessary, and it's a big part of your budget.
Well, they can flag a lot of things for you that you didn't even know were options, and now all of a sudden you feel like you have to have them.
Yeah.
And that wasn't even part of the equation when you were setting that budget.
Remember, it started off as a black and white movie, but then it became color with Steve Martin, father of the bride, and he was like sticker shock with how much he was going to have to pay at his own house as the venue.
Yep.
And
I love that
and
movie.
they hired, they did hire a wedding, what do you call it? Wedding planner. Yeah. I think what we've learned here today is you don't have to spend $30,000 to have a great wedding. In fact, you could spend a lot less. Make it fun, make it a party, make it memorable, and you can actually, I hate to say do it on the cheap, but you can do it for a lot less than $30,000. And I think that's a great point to learn today. Hey, Ann, thanks so much for joining us on the On Your Side podcast. For people who want to find out more about you
or the castle
or any background, where can they find you at?
Well, there's limcastle.com, which is LYMPNE. It sounds like limp, like LYMPNE, castle.com. They can find me on that, and they can find out about the castle. It is pronounced limb, which I haven't told my husband. He thinks it's limp. So he's Prince Limp.
I love that.
So whatever you do, don't tell anybody. Don't let him know that it's pronounced that. But
your secret is safe.
That sounds good. Wonderful. And listen, I hope my wife does not listen to this podcast because of the strategy that Ann uses to upgrade her ring. What is it at now? 20 carats?
24 carats.
24. So let me see that.
Yeah, thing. It's a sparkler.
Yeah,
my gosh.
I know.
You can't outdo. What do you do with all the other ones? You just trade them in like a car?
No, this is even. So I am very devious. I have 6 children and I have 6 rings now. So the children know that whoever treats me the nicest in life gets the biggest ring. The kids all suck up to me because they want the biggest ring. And I actually sent my daughter to her room one day, just crying. And I said, well, it's not that bad. She said, I'm not going to get the big ring. But she actually thinks
she knows.
That is funny. Well, that'll keep them in line for sure.
I love it.
And thanks so much for joining us. It was a pleasure talking to you, and it was a great conversation. So thanks so much, okay? And enjoy London.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
The On Your Side podcast is produced by Brad Denny. Our audio engineer and editor is Todd Martin. Segment producer is Colin Stanton. And I'm Gary Harper.
And I'm Susan Campbell. If you have a problem you can't resolve, maybe we can. Send us a message through azfamily.com or our AZ Family mobile app. Look for the On Your Side section and leave us a message. Thanks so much for listening to the On Your Side podcast. And if you like it, leave us a review. We'll see you next week.
On Your Side is on Good Morning Arizona every weekday morning at 6:45 and 7 o'clock, and every weekday evening on Good Evening Arizona at 4 and 5 o'clock. You can also catch it on Arizona's Family News at 9 on 3TV every weeknight.